G'day guys and welcome to Ask a Pathfinder's Player Advice. Today we are going to be taking a look at villainous characters and how to play them at your table. Let's get into it! Alright guys, so there's going to be two sections to this video. The first section is just going to be about a whole bunch of theories and stuff like that, just so that we can clear up how I'm going to be discussing this video. The second half is going to be all about the different archetypes of villains and some examples of how to play them. So if you do join in for that, I do hope I don't bore you guys to death, because I'm going to try my darndest to make this interesting. So let's start. First of all, we commonly call heroes the guys who go on the adventure, do the quest, save the princess, yada yada yada. And the people that stop them, the villains. This is incorrect. When you are talking about a narrative, what you actually mean is that the person who is undergoing the quest, the person who the audience members are supposed to be following and rooting for, is called the protagonist. They go on their adventure, at which point the antagonist tries to hinder, create obstacles, or otherwise disrupt the protagonist's journey. Now, the protagonist does not need to be a hero. They can be a villainous character, much like an antagonist might be a hero. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say, for example, that the antagonist in this story happens to be a paladin who has found a rare artifact that will apparently imbue his entire church with the power of their goddess. The problem is that the Hierophant wishes to spread the word of their god, whether or not the people want to hear it or not, to everyone. It's a lawful good god, everyone will be happy, but it'll rob everyone of their freedom. Thus, several rogues, brigands, and ne'er-do-wells gather up together to try and disrupt their plans, steal the idol, and destroy it. In this case, the protagonists are the villains, and the antagonists, the paladins of righteousness and good, are the antagonist. So, how do we play a villainous character? Well, there's a whole video on playing an evil character, so if you want to, there's a link below, and you'll need to look into that. Just like in that, you need to make sure that you are playing the protagonist and not an antagonist. Do not aim your evil or your villainous stuff towards your party unless your players are okay with it. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to aim that outwards. If you do evil outwards. If you're doing something mean or spiteful or menacing, again, outwards. Alright, let's talk about archetypes. Now, there are 7 major archetypes for playing a villain that I'm going to go through, and each one brings out a very unique style of being a villain. Bear in mind that when you choose to play an evil character, it's always a good choice to kind of maybe have a look and see if one of these archetypes is suitable for you. The first one I'm going to talk about is the savage. The savage villain is someone who has shunned or otherwise discarded their sense of civility and has taken on a more primal, vicious, and brutal persona. They could be someone like a barbarian who, goes forth and does Viking things, chops people up who irritate him, steal from people, and take back to his lands. Conan the Barbarian, a great example of a protagonist villain. Conan was not a nice person. Conan was a barbarian, and he was everything a barbarian you'd expect from a barbarian. Tearing people asunder, rendering arms. Playing a savage is about that brutality. It is about realizing that the law is a construct designed to protect the weak, and that you have grown up on a simple rule of survival of the fittest. Whether or not you wish to impose that outwardly, or whether or not you simply exist in the world and don't care what everyone else thinks. That is how a savage villain tends to kind of play into it. The next type of villain is the mastermind. Now, these ones are kind of tricky to play because at the end of the day, a game of any kind of game, like Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons, whatever, it is designed for the GM to be able to lead you along the plot and along the story. Masterminds are those who control, orchestrate, and conduct the world around them in order to try and manipulate other people, locations, information, and it's very hard to do that when you are trailing a story. A great example of a mastermind character that I know someone played was he played a lich type character. He was a spellcaster. He was very long-lived. And there was a whole bunch of things that he was allowed to do before the game even started because he'd requested so. One of the things he did, which was very interesting, was that he basically became the mayor of a town and outlawed males. Basically, it got to a point where the male population was next to non-existent in a particular area, and it was just how it was grown. When by the time we got to the adventure, we came upon a all-female Amazoness type warrior camp. And it was really amusing because he, as a mastermind, had laid this plan out because people had, in that era, had underestimated females. He now had a trained army of women who could sneak in covertly and basically do his bidding. That is kind of masterminding. It is basically manipulating the events of the world to have a greater effect and try to stay ahead of your antagonist through little tiny acts. They're, again, very hard to play. Next up, the Ancient Evil. Now, the Ancient Evil falls into the category of more an agent of evil, I guess, where you are not necessarily the evil source, but you are acting on behalf of an evil source. This could be a demon, or a devil, or a daemon, or the elder gods. Whatever the case may be, you are scary because you are a force that is a conduit to something greater than yourself. The weirdest thing is that the more humble you play these kinds of characters, the scarier it becomes. Another good example of this is I had a friend of mine play a monk. Now, this monk was a pacifist. He actually did not like violence. He deplored it. But he would say some of the weirdest stuff, and he was so creepy. And the thing is that we actually asked him, how come you're a pacifist? And he turned around, he, honest to God, said to the group, because the old ones want victims alive. And he said it so quick and with such a straight face, the rest of us went, whoa, okay, well, you're sleeping outside. And we're just, yeah, that's kind of what ancient evil type of villainy is all about. The next up is the Anarchist. Now, the Anarchist probably sounds very familiar to many murder hobo-y tables. You basically gather up all your stuff, do what you want, when you want, despite the consequences. If someone wants to step up to you, then you will step up to them with your knife in hand. These guys are all about being free and being whatever they want. But there's another angle to this as well. Having freedom for yourself is all well and good. But an anarchist can look at imposing their freedom on other people as well. They could look at trying to disrupt order as people know it, or try and break down and turn other people into anarchists. There's so many different angles that you can really play with that, but the real thing here is that, similar to the Savage, you're trying to act out against civilization, and you're trying to disrupt it, but in a more tangible way than the Savage would. On the opposite side of that is the Authority. Now, many villains fall into this category. I am a king, I have evil minions, and my evil minions will go out and do things at my bidding. I have authority because this is my terrain, this is my domain, this is where I live. And authority is a very easy thing to fight. It also gives you very easy justification as to why there are obstacles in the way. If you want a barricade, very well, you hire the guards, you build a barricade. If you are, say, an anarchist villain, well, yeah, it's kind of hard because you've got to kind of then rally people together, and then you got to try and find some time to actually sort everyone out. Authoritative figures are all about structure and hierarchy. So when you play with an authoritative figure, try to decide, like, where does your ambition lie? Do you want to be one of the characters who tries to assume leadership? Are you simply a person who stops people from performing acts of anarchy? Whether or not you have to drive a knife through their head or not. Authoritative figures are probably the most abrasive of villains, but they can be very sensible compared to the others. Next up is the anti-villain. Now, this is going to be kind of tricky because there's obviously an anti-hero, but also an anti-villain. So, hear me out. An anti-villain is a person who is doing good through an evil act. An anti-villain is someone who is using a good act to do evil. Okay? An example of this, I think, comes best from... I can't remember all the details, so do forgive me on this. This is very kind of loose information. If you do have the full details, leave it in the chat below. But Lathander, one of the gods from the Forgotten Realms series, ended up starting a whole crusade. I think it was called the Dawn Crusade. And it was this big, general fallacy, this huge heretical thing where he basically started a campaign to try and convert the world into being good and righteous and under his banner, blah, 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 and wiping out evil. And he ended up causing lots of death, lots of suffering, and generally speaking, around that time, he lost a lot of faith and a lot of respect because of just how much bloodshed was created from his pursuit of something good. That is an example of an anti-villain. The person himself has all the good intentions and wants to do good and is doing what, by all definition, good would be, going out to slay evil. But then when it becomes too much, when it goes too far, that's when you slip into the territory of the anti-villain. They're very difficult to play, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I have, till this day, over the course of maybe tens of thousands of games, I've never once seen someone play an anti-villain. If you do one, and you do have a story, definitely share it with me. I'd love to even chat with you about it, because, oh my god, like, I really want to see an anti-villain. The last villain subtype I'm going to leave you guys with is the corrupted, or the deranged. This is someone who used to be a non-villain character. They don't have to be a hero, but, you know, like the farmer, the baker could also turn to this. But it's always great to see, like, paladins or other creatures basically fall and become villains. The easiest example of this is obviously with the paladin turning into an anti-paladin after a loss of faith. But this could also come down to a corruption of some kind, such as in Pathfinder. If you check out Horror Adventures, there is a whole series of being tainted by the influence of some other kind of monstrous creature, like a lich or a demon or a vampire, and slowly having that corruption spread. The idea of playing these particular characters is to basically show that fall, to show that process of the slow degradation of your moralities and your values and your heroism into the villain side of things. This is a very easy one to do, guys. All you need to remember is that you need to want to do good, but fail. And that's really it, is you want to be... I'm a paladin, I've done something evil, I've lost all my powers, I want to get my powers back, but it's so much easier to go to a different church and maybe get some friends in other places on my side. Alright guys, so the overview for this. Basically, when you play a villainous character, whether it be the savage, the mastermind, the ancient evil, the anarchist, the authoritative figure, the anti-villain, or a corrupted villain, you've got to remember that there's a whole array of ways to play. These are just some of the interesting archetypes that you can use to shape your characters and to make them something vivid and individual. Everyone can play an evil character, and it comes down to a certain amount of trust between the players and the GMs. If you have a trust issue, or if you find that your GM is very nervous about playing an evil character, present them with an idea that falls into one of these categories. As a GM myself, I find that I am at ease so much more when I hear about a villainous character that falls into these categories, as opposed to just simply being, I am evil, I eat people because they're tasty. Ha 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 ha. That's not really much depth. This is where you get the depth from. Alright guys, well that's it from me. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you guys. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Just a couple of short announcements. We will be doing a whole bunch of more Pathfinder related stuff on the channel, including a few Let's Plays. So we're going to be doing a playthrough of my own custom adventures, both a Starfinder and a Pathfinder 1st Edition one. This will be the Starswift Chronicles, which will be run off the Bacon Battalion channel. There will be a playlist with links and stuff like that. And a show that will be run off this channel called Tales from the Undertaker, a custom horror adventure that I will be running sometime in the next couple of weeks for you guys to enjoy. In addition, if you guys have any questions at all about general RPGs or playing Pathfinder, leave them in the comments below, and I'd love to be able to make a video just for you about that particular topic. Which brings me to Facebook. So if you want to, head on over to our Facebook channel. You can find a whole bunch of blogs and some games there. And if you want to talk to me directly, I love chatting to people and fans. Head on over to www.discord.me/AskAPathfinder. And yeah, come say hi. You know, just chat and chill. I'm very, very laid back. And if I don't respond to you straight away, I do apologize. It's just because I do so many different things. But I will always make time to say hi if you say hi to me. And lastly, of course, we do have our Patreon. So if you want to become one of our cheeky goblins for as little as $1 a month, you can just head on over to the Patreon page, sign up, and we give you a big shout out on the channel. In addition, we are looking for more players to join us in the Mythic tier, which is $60 a month, in which you get to play a 2nd edition game of my own devising. It is a sort of podcasty type game that we do every Monday at 8 a.m. GMT plus 8, which translated is Sunday evening 8 p.m. US Eastern Standard Time. I think I got that right. I'm pretty sure I got that right. All right, guys. Well, that's it from me. Thank you very much again. If you have any questions, again, leave them behind. And till next time, as always, from us here at Ask a Pathfinder, make sure that you keep your dice rolling and make sure your ideas stay mind-worm free. Have a good one, guys.